Figure out how you want to run your days so you don't miss out on anything. Now, isn't that a powerful comment? That's one of the key messages I got out of this amazing interview that I did with Alison Donaghey out of Vancouver Island in British Columbia in Canada. Alison has been there. She's done it all. She started as a single mum on welfare. Well, don't get me wrong, she didn't start there, but this story is about her journey, coming from a single mother on welfare and then segueing into building a successful painting business on Vancouver Island called Sonshine Girls Painting. It's an interesting story because it takes you through, I suppose, her journey from, where she started and where she is now, which is basically her son's looking to take over the business and they're looking to set up some franchising systems and things like that so they can grow and scale the business in that way. It's a wonderful story with a wonderful woman, and I hope you all like it. And if you do like it and you want to get hold of Alison as well, there'll certainly be links within the show notes, so you can head across to thesiteshed.com and check out this episode where you'll be able to get access to those links to her. Otherwise, you can leave some comments in the comment section on this page or anywhere you see it on social media. We will certainly answer that and get back to you or connect you to the right people. Anyway, that's all from me, so let's dive right in. This podcast is proudly brought to you by the SiteShed's Business Accelerator program. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you fed up, sick and tired of having to depend on other people or other contractors to generate your own work for you? Do you ever just get completely confused with the whole lead generation scenario for your business? Or what about instances where people do come to your door, but they're not your ideal customer? How would you like to be able to generate qualified leads for your customers on demand? If you head across to thesiteshed.com/explode, you'll be able to get access to the free training that we've put together, which takes you through the step-by-step process in which we've been able to help clients generate some crazy results in their business. I'm talking results like 179 highly qualified leads within the space of up to 30 days. All this is very available to you and the training is free. So head across to thesiteshed.com/explode and you can check it out for yourself.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello listeners and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed. Thank you once again for sharing your earbuds with me regardless of where you are around this planet. And today we are being joined by Alison Donaghey. Alison, hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Victoria Island in British Columbia, yeah?
Vancouver Island, Victoria is a city on it, but yeah, most of us don't get it right either.
Victoria Island in Vancouver. Island.
Vancouver Island, yeah.
Okay, and the city is Victoria?
It's Nanaimo.
Oh, okay. So where does Victoria come into it?
Yeah, it gets confusing because the capital of BC is Victoria.
Gotcha.
But everybody thinks it's Vancouver, so it should be Victoria Island, but you're just smarter than the rest of them.
Yeah, or not. Especially considering I've been there and I still don't know. So anyway.
Well, you had other things on your mind.
Anyway, thank you for joining us. And I'm really looking forward to diving into this because you've got a pretty cool story here, which I'm looking forward to delving into.
Thank you.
Now, I suppose initially I'd like to ask you, before we dive into it too much, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Oh, I wanted to be a cat burglar.
Okay.
I remember saying to my teacher, like on career day or whatever it was, everybody's saying, doctor and nurse, teacher, whatever. And I said, I want to be a cat burglar. And she had no idea what to do. Just the idea of being able to go to places where other people can't go. Yep. And I didn't really want to steal anything. I just wanted to break into places.
Okay. That's interesting.
I know. I was like 7, 6, something like that. Yeah, I have no idea where it came from.
Yeah. Paving the way for a bright career.
Yes. And then as I got older, I thought I might become a lawyer because I like to debate and I'm always fascinated with crime. And then I had my son and that just sort of changed everything.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sensing a bit of a theme there in the crime world. There's a lot of people that would say cat burglars and lawyers are pretty similar on the spectrum, but anyway.
Yeah, I suspect they are. I worked in the criminology industry for a while because that's where I started at university. And yeah, I didn't see a big difference between the people working and the people incarcerated.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a concern.
Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, I suppose, where you found yourself in 1999, because I know in the introduction there was a pretty pretty strong story there, and I'd like to maybe get your feel on that.
Right. Well, I had been dating a guy for a few years, and he was a painter. Mm-hmm. And I was at university. I was a single mom. I was working 3 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. And I met him, and he said, I can teach you how to paint, and you'll make more money, and you won't have to work as much, which means you can see your kid more. And I'm like, I don't even care if I like it. Sign me up. Yeah. I was already doing jobs I didn't like, and so it wasn't much of a stretch for me. And it turned out I was really good at it. And I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to do? I hadn't finished my degree at university. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll just start my own company, painting company, do it for a year, and then I'll know what I really want to be. Right. And that first year went really well. It didn't, it's not hard to get off welfare because it pays so little. Mm-hmm. And so I managed to get off welfare and had a pretty successful company. And then my second year, I returned to university while I was running the company and finished my degree. And then
What was the degree in?
Originally, it was a criminology diploma, and then I went back for my Bachelor of Arts with a double minor in psychology and sociology.
Yeah, wow.
So not painting at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I took a course to teach English as a second language. And my son and I moved to Italy for 6 months, and I continued to run the business from there. And then I got some odd illness while I was there and had to come back. And my son said, I don't want to leave again. I want to graduate with my friends. And so I said, okay. And I thought, well, I'll just keep doing the painting. And then when he graduates, I'll go do something else. But business just kept getting better, and I quite enjoyed it and stuck with it.
Cool. So let's talk about that transition into Sonshine Girls Painting, because you are, as we in Australia call, a tradie, and we have quite a lot of painters actually that listen to this show. So I'm sure they'll be interested in hearing about your story and your transition into that business.
Right. Well, because I had been painting with him, he had actually slid back into drug addiction. And so all I could do really was just keep painting when jobs would come up. And things became really messy and ugly in that whole world of addiction. So when he died, I didn't really have any business understanding. All I knew is that I could put paint on the wall. And like he said, I could work less and make more money and get food on the table. And so my whole focus was to just feed my kid.
Yeah.
And so I did what everybody was doing at the time. I put an ad in the Yellow Pages, and I started talking to people, and I just kept getting busier. And it helped that the economy was on an upswing. I caught the very, very beginning of it. So I got to grow my business as the economy was growing. And I thought I was a complete rock star until the economy crashed. And then I thought, oh, yeah, right. It was a rather humbling experience. I wasn't as amazing as I thought I was. And I had a lot of learning to do at that point. But it was just trying to figure it out how I went along, what worked, what didn't work. I didn't have an awful lot of support from other painters because, this was almost 20 years ago. Women weren't, it was okay if we worked for a man, but we certainly didn't want to be the one hiring the men.
Right, okay.
And so there wasn't much in the way of mentoring. So I just had to figure out how to do it by asking my customers, what do you like? What don't you like? And then creating systems on that.
Do you think that part of the key to the success and the traction that you got in that business initially came from the gender difference? I mean, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think we have an aging population here. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of widows and female widows, and they're intimidated, I think, by the men. Now, on the flip side, I lost a lot of jobs because I was female.
Right.
But that was okay with me because that's why I called myself Sonshine Girl, so that people knew that they were dealing with a female.
Yeah.
And I had too many people when I worked for my boyfriend that would say, you're a girl, you can't do this. I'm not talking money with you.
Right.
And I wanted to just avoid them. And the best way to avoid them was to tell them ahead of time that I was female, and then they could just avoid me.
Yeah, smart. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because there's a few people, a few companies in Australia here that are female-based trade operators, and they do the same thing. They market themselves as female operators, and they would effectively, they're addressing that problem before it arises, or they're addressing that conversation before it happens by doing that. So I think you're definitely onto something back then.
Yeah, well, and it's funny how it's been a benefit and a handicap. Like I've had people upset that I hire men mostly other painters get upset about it, not so much my customers.
Right.
And, it's illegal just to hire based on gender, and that works both ways. So
right.
I'm an equal opportunist. I hire the best person for the job.
Yeah.
And the longer I stay in business, the more men that want to work with me, which is nice. And, I've had some customers that have said that they wouldn't hire me because we weren't all female, but then they turn around and hire an all male crew.
Right.
So it does have its pros and cons for sure. I've had companies not want to ask me because they think the job's too big.
Okay.
And they think maybe we can't handle it. So it's about really just kind of finding your niche and then taking all the rest of it in stride.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, from a marketing point of view, it probably has quite a large amount of leverage, being that you're, a woman in a predominantly man's industry.
Well, apart from the name, I don't leverage it at all.
Okay.
I made a decision really early on, like this wasn't about boy versus girl.
Yep.
This was just about avoidance for me. I just wanted to avoid those people.
Yeah.
And so when I would have ads on the radio, the people that were doing the mock-ups for them would say, so maybe the best man for a job is a woman. And I'd be like, oh, no. I don't want to go there. I want people to hire us because we're a good company. I don't want them to hire us because of what we look like naked. Like it's... it's because I'm a real big believer in equality and hiring based on who can do the job. And sometimes that means women and sometimes that means men.
Tell me a little bit about the segue you made into Your Perfect Colors.
Oh, years ago, I was in the paint store and some other painter was picking up paint. And the guy behind the counter said to him, ugh, that's a hideous color. And the guy says, I know. And I said, where's it going? And he goes, everywhere. And I'm like, their whole house. And he said, yeah. And I said, why don't you tell him? And he said, it's not my problem. I just put it on the walls.
Right.
And I went, oh man, like that can't be good. Like there's nothing about that felt right for me. And then I realized that I may have been doing that, not really questioning the customer or helping. And so I decided I would start helping. And about a year later, I realized all of my houses looked exactly the same. And I realized, oh, I'm not helping, I'm telling.
Right.
And so then slowly I started developing this system that removes me from the equation and just teaches my customers how to look at color so they're empowered to pick their own. Because anybody can pick colors if they just avoid the mistakes. So
what are some of the variables there that is it a program? What is it? How does it work?
So it's an online course. I'm in the process of just converting it to online, but locally I do it one-on-one with my customers.
Okay.
And it just sort of have perfected it. And it's only been in the last few months that I'm converting it to online.
So it's kind of a brief, is it? You just go through and ascertain tastes, what they like, all that kind of stuff.
I outline some of the biggest mistakes. I've broken it down into 3 areas where you can, just 3 rules. If you follow these 3 rules, you're going to be fine. And then I explain why those 3 rules work. It's, one of them is just about the way that we look at colors. So many people want to pick a color in the paint store. That doesn't work.
Right.
Because your decor, your flooring, your furniture, your lighting, all of that, your light bulbs, it all changes how that's going to look in your house. Yeah. And so I talk about how doing that is a mistake and might work under certain circumstances, but most of the time it's not a successful choice.
There must be a point, though, with some projects where you have to draw a line and say, listen, guys, this is actually going to look really shit.
You would be surprised it doesn't happen.
Really?
Like it really doesn't, because by the time my customers have figured out what colors they want, they know what they're looking at. And there's been times that I've said to them, this is going to be really bright. Like you're putting safety yellow in your bedroom and this is the ramifications of that. And they go, yeah, I know. I still want it. Okay, great. Right? Would I want it? No. For me, it would be a horrible mistake. For them, it was fantastic. She was thrilled when she saw the safety yellow in her bedroom.
Okay. Oh, well, I suppose, we have to consider the colorblind people of the world, I guess. That's
yeah, that's right. And the program doesn't really help the colorblind. Right. I'm not sure how to work around that one yet. Maybe one day I'll figure that out. But it does give people what they want. And ultimately, I think that's what's important. I don't think the trend is important. I don't think what the neighbor wants or what the kid wants is important, unless the kid's at home and it's their bedroom. And I think we need to set aside everybody else's opinion, because at the end of the day, the customer is the one paying for it. The customer is the one that's going home every single day and looking at that color. It should be something that makes them feel good.
Do you have, I know in Australia, in certain places, there's, in areas anyway, there's restrictions on the colours you can paint your homes. Like, it's sort of got to comply with a certain look and feel. I got a feeling it was similar in Toronto too, in areas around the beaches there. You got to sort of comply to a certain sort of spectrum there. Do you guys have that out where you are?
We have subdivisions that will all sort of have the same feel.
Right.
But then usually after, I think it's about a 10-year period, people can start doing what they want with their homes.
Okay. But
there are some builders, and it's mandated in their build that that owner and all future owners have to approve the colors or get approval for any colors that they're changing.
Gotcha.
But usually when people are moving into those neighborhoods, they're moving in because they like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. So what was the pivotal moment there where you started up Sonshine Girls Painting? Like, what was the penny drop moment, really?
When I started the company?
Yeah.
I think it was when Bob died.
Yeah.
And I had been, before I met him, I had been working the jobs, and I'd never been able to get off welfare. Like, I needed it for daycare, or I needed it for medical, or I needed it for something.
Yeah.
So they always had sort of a hold on me in some way, shape, or form. And I knew I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And I'd seen other painters be successful around town and have good companies. And so after he died, I thought, well, I don't have to do it his way, because there was a lot of things he did I didn't agree with. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just see how it goes. I gave myself a year, and within 6 months, I was flourishing.
So what did that year look like?
It was a lot of hours. I didn't get to see my kid as much as I'd hoped, but it was a lot of learning, a lot of figuring things out. Like, how many hours a day can I actually work and still function?
Yeah.
How was the best way to order paint? What's the best paint? Like, it was all of those
processes.
Yeah, because apart from putting paint on the walls, I didn't know much of anything.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing. That a lot of businesses. We deal with obviously loads of businesses, especially through the digital agency, and it's the same thing. Like, they can be the best painter in the world, the best plumber in the world, the best builder in the world, but when it comes to applying the skills that you need in order to run a successful business, a lot of them don't have access to that, or they've never had to. I mean, it's not they couldn't. It's just they don't know where to start. So they kind of end up, end up recreating the wheel to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a really good place to start is be your own customer.
Right.
And I think there's quite a few businesses around that if they actually considered that, they wouldn't want to be their own customer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And everything that I did in my business revolved around, is this the best choice for my customer? Yeah. Because ultimately, if it was the best choice for them, it was the best choice for me.
Yeah.
And not to say I didn't fire some customers, because I certainly have, because that was best for the customer.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it was good for me too, because they were a pain in the ass. But it was still, I wasn't their painter. Somebody else should have been. And it's once I realized if I could run it like that, then I'd be okay.
A slight segue, do you have any tips, or, I mean, as a mum, obviously, you've had to go through that whole trying to juggle work and family life balance there. We got a lot of female listeners all over the place as well, and I'm sure they'd be interested to see, what your experience was in tackling that objective.
Mm-hmm. Don't miss anything.
Yeah.
Figure out how you can run your days so that you can be there for all of the important stuff, because it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And I was lucky that I figured that out pretty early. Like, the first year, I didn't get to see my son a lot, and he spent a lot of time with babysitters. But after that, I was like, hang on a second, I want to see his school play. So I'm just going to create a situation where I can be there for that.
Yeah.
And in his final year of high school, I didn't miss one of his basketball games.
Yeah, right.
I refused to let this gift of a business, because I really see it as a gift, take the other gifts away. Yep. And there has to be a way to be able to mesh them, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. If you don't have a storage of memories, you've got nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I know for sure there's a lot of our listeners out there that they're so busy, and I'm sure there's, opportunities they miss. because of work. I mean, look, we all do to a degree. You can't avoid some of it, but yeah, I think it's really important. Did you have any frameworks or any structures that you'd put in place, around the days? I mean, obviously, you want to drop did you take your boy to school? Did you pick him up from school? Was that the kind of stuff that you were, focusing on within that time realm?
No, I was more focused on his extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
We weren't that far from the school. He could ride his bike to and from. And I don't know if that's what kids remember.
Right. But
he remembered that I was at every one of his games. His friends in high school still remember that I was one of the only mums at every one of his games.
Yeah, right.
And there's that pride that I don't know if pride's the right word, but that appreciation that he had in me being able to do that. And once I had staff, it became much easier to make that, because I could just say, going to get paint. And on the way to get paint, I'd stop and see the play. And then I'd go back to the job site with the paint, right? So, and I'm still making money. My customers are still getting their place painted. So everybody wins. And as a single parent, I think it was, if I wasn't there, no one was there.
Do you also, with your staff, employees, et cetera, did you have a similar mindset with them and, their families and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still do. And, even when I interview people, or I say to people, like, do you have kids? And I had somebody say to me, you're not allowed to ask me that.
Oh.
And I said, well, I'm asking so you can answer or not answer, but I want to know if there's going to be daycare situations that I can plan to work around for you.
Yeah.
And do I have to allow a certain number of days off a month so that you can do something with your kid, take them to the doctor, see a play? Like, this is a job and you spend so much time here. I don't want you missing out on the stuff that is important. And I've managed to get some really, really amazing staff that appreciate that.
Yeah.
And they're not in fear of losing their job, male and female. Mm-hmm. It's not just a female problem, right? Because we often think that it is, but I've had a lot of men over the years that are single dads or shared custody, and they just need to do something. And I'm like, tell me what you need and we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good approach there. I wish more business owners sort of thought like that.
Me too. Well, yes and no. I wouldn't get all the great painters. I wouldn't have the great staff that I had if every other company in town did it. But no, seriously, I think it's important for us to spend more attention on, like I said earlier, what's best for our customers, but what's best for our staff. So many businesses just see staff as an evil necessity.
Yeah.
And I had a guy early on, he was an electrician, and he said to me, if you want to make money, you can't do it being your only painter.
Right.
You have to hire staff. And the more staff you make, the more money you're going to make. And I went, okay.
And is that true in your experience? Because I know a lot of, our clients, they've decided to go the opposite way. They've downsized because they had too much staff, too many overheads, less control, all this kind of stuff. So
I think for me, it's definitely the way to go. But there are these tipping points where if you get to like 9 staff, you have to break off in different crews, or you need a leader for, 4.5 of those staff.
Yeah.
You can't just have everybody operating at a painter level. You then have to start now having a bit more of a hierarchy. But the more staff you have, the more jobs you have, the more headaches you have, the more problems that can occur. And so the more important that a process is.
Yeah, right. So while we're, I suppose, on that, we're sort of getting to the next question here, where I was going to ask you, what do you spend your time on during the day? Like, what's your role in the business these days?
I oversee things. I do all of the estimating, and I do the color consults with clients.
Okay.
And then I troubleshoot where it needs to be. My son is my foreman. He's the sun in sunshine, and he didn't really think he'd become a painter. I thought he would. He started with welding. And decided he liked painting better. So he's been with me now for 9 years. And so now he's running the crews and he wants to take over the business. So it's that learning to step back and let things happen the way he needs to see them happen, which is a job in and of itself.
Yep.
And there's things that he brings that are way better than how I did them.
Yeah, okay.
But
like what?
It is a process. He's super easygoing.
Yep.
And I tend to be caught up in that business part of it more,
right?
Where he kind of rolls with the punches maybe a little bit better. I'm getting better at it, but it comes really natural to him. He's very, very personable.
Yep.
And he doesn't get emotional about things, maybe the same way I do. Like he's emotional, but not the same way. Like if somebody is mean to me, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, see ya. Where, right? Like my poor little feelings get hurt. And I don't want
to me.
But for me, it's more of a quest of making life easy.
Right.
And if people are making things hard, I want to move on. Mm-hmm. Whereas he is more social. And so he's more inclined to talk to the other paint companies, where I'm just still stuck in that. They didn't want me. I'm good. I'm doing it on my own.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And so what do you do when you're not working?
What? I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
Well, I realized that it wasn't enough for me to just be running the company. I decided to start a second company.
Oh, good.
And so I work a lot. I work and I travel. I've written a book. I have a radio show. And so I enjoy working. It's my hobby.
Yeah. I know it's one of those things, isn't it? When you run your own businesses, you kind of, people say, well, what are you doing at work? You're like, well, I feel like I'm kind of always working, but.
Yeah. And, I don't, and it's a really good substitution for a personal life.
Yeah.
And I live in Nanaimo. I live on Vancouver Island. It's scarce pickings.
Yeah, but there's a lot to do out there, though, right? I mean, you've got lots of hiking and lots of outdoor activities and skiing, perhaps.
Yeah, well, a lot of that happens in the summer.
Right.
And summer's busy.
Yeah.
And because we have a definite rainy season, and here on the island we don't get much snow, but it's still, we can't paint in the off season. And I'm a city girl. I don't know how I ended up here, but I would much rather be going to the theater and cultural events, and going hiking up a mountain is just not my cup of tea.
Okay.
But there's a lot of that here.
That's interesting, actually. So obviously you guys are subject to some pretty inclement weather for a large portion of the year. What happens to the business during those periods? How do you focus on indoor painting at those points, or how do you structure that year?
Yeah, we do. So our crew drops from about 15 down to 4 or 5, depending on the year. So we have a huge drop. And it makes it really challenging because every spring we don't know when the painting season's going to start.
Right.
And so there's this collision of our interior work and the rain with our exterior work and the sun, and then hiring new staff. And when can you hire staff? And so there's this big collision that happens in spring. And then there's the same collision that happens when the rains come in October, trying to then make sure you get what you can done outside before the rain has a negative impact on it, and then lay off staff and convert to interior work. So it makes for 2 very, very stressful periods.
So when you're employing staff, do they know that, come a certain time, there may not be position for them? Is that made clear?
Yeah, they understand that it's a seasonal. We do hire some students, and students who often come back to us year after year, which is always really nice because, retraining people is challenging and expensive.
Yeah.
And so that's nice. We have a university here, and so we pull from that. But this year I have very few students, so everybody wants to stay on, and I'd love to keep everybody, but the reality is we can't.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. And are they employed as contractors, or are they full-time, or how does it typically work?
They're employees.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some companies in town that will hire for piecework and hire subcontractors, but I just think legally it becomes very messy, because if one company is hiring a subcontractor and that subcontractor is solely working for that company, legally they're not a subcontractor.
Right.
And then the government can get involved, and then you're paying back taxes, and it just becomes messy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there's less control. I'm not able to say, I'm sorry, I don't want you talking to my customers like that, because they're like, I'm my own company. I can do what I want.
Right.
And we have a very specific way on how we deal with our customers.
Okay. And that's a system or a process, is it? Or you've trained them in a certain way? Or?
Yeah, it's, the reality is that even though I don't advertise or really play on that whole female part, people are hiring us because they expect a more feminine approach.
Right. And what does that mean?
I think they're less tolerant when we're late.
Right.
So it's very important to my staff that I impress upon them that they have to be early.
Yeah.
There's very little leeway in terms of mess. So we have systems where we clean up.
Yeah. And
I've seen some of my counterparts, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a pigsty. How do you get away with that? Right. So that's, people just expect different work. And there's a misconception out there that women are neater. And I've hired women who are really neat and women that are not very neat, and same with men. And it's a personality type. It's not a gender thing.
Right.
But because they expect that from women, we have to fulfill that more, I think, than our male counterparts.
Okay.
And we communicate a lot with our customers. Like my estimates are extremely detailed. So there's mass communication, and they feel very comfortable and they know what they're getting.
Do you have any tips on, I suppose, improving conversions or winning work, over competitors? Or, one of the other questions I will ask you eventually is how you avoid competing on price. But I'm a little bit more interested, I suppose, in if you've got any tips or processes or, tricks, up your sleeve in terms of getting those conversions working better for you.
Oh, it's an excellent question. I think it's so super important to show up exactly of who you are. Don't try. Like I dated a guy one time, and if he got a phone call to go do an estimate, he'd rush home, put on his paint clothes, and then show up to do the estimate saying how busy he was.
Right.
And people see through that. And, he attracted a certain type of customer because they probably sensed that on some level. I make it a point to educate my customers as much as possible. And I will say to my customers, I'm not sure this paint job's the right answer for you.
Okay.
I don't think you should paint under your deck. I think you should spend the money right now, get it softened, and then it's going to cost you a bit more now, but it's going to be much better for you in the long run. And I've just talked myself out of a $2,000 job or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's the right choice for the customer. And then they say, wow, she helped us in this area. And then the flip side is that they have an appreciation for me.
Yeah.
Because I've taken that extra time to educate them about colors, educate them about products. There's some products that we have here that people were using like crazy, and they were just the wrong product. They're not designed for our residential exteriors, and people are using them. So I explain why you would use it, why you wouldn't use it, and when we caulk and when we don't caulk, and the science and the theories behind all of that.
Yeah.
And so they feel educated, they feel now empowered. And they appreciate that. So I think anytime you're doing anything and you can empower the person you're doing business with, you're going to win in the long run. They're going to win. You're going to win. They're going to refer you to people. They're just going to love you.
Isn't that funny? I was on a local radio show here a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying to the host there, look, I'm under no illusion that we are definitely in the education space. And she couldn't get her head around that. In the sense that she kept asking me, but you sell, but you guys do websites and marketing. What do you mean you're in the education space? And I'm like, listen, trust me, we are in the education space. And it's true, because people come to us with thinking they know what they want, but the reality is they don't. They might come to us saying, oh, we need to run Google AdWords because they've heard it somewhere, or one of their friends and competitors is doing it or something. And then you look into their business and you're like, you don't actually need, that won't actually help you get to where you want to go. So I imagine it's the same across the board in any industry, any vertical. It's good to hear that it's not just me.
I think it is massive. I think it teaches your customer, your client, whatever you happen to have, that they matter and their outcome matters.
Yeah.
And when we don't care that the hideous colors going on their wall, they're going to resent us.
Yeah.
Because we have more experience. I don't want somebody coming and doing my landscaping without telling me what I need and why I need it. Yeah. Or what I don't need. I want to have those conversations. And so because I think I'm my own customer, would my customer then want to have those conversations? And then, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned before, you do a lot of detailed quotes and things like that. Do you charge for those quotes?
No.
No?
No, we don't.
Okay.
There's just, we would never get called here on the island.
Yeah.
We're not like electricians. We can't do that.
How do you avoid competing on price?
I don't even think about it as a competition.
Okay.
I go forward. I stay in my own lane. I think this is what I can do it for. My experience dictates this. Hire me or don't.
Yep.
And I really see it that if they hire somebody else, they weren't my people.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't spend time wondering, oh, why didn't they call me? Why? I just trust that I dodged a bullet. Or it's maybe they didn't get the painting done after all. There are so many other things we can spend our energy on.
Do you have a follow-up process after you submit a proposal or a quotation to a potential customer?
Yeah, we do. We 2 days later, so I do an estimate. I tell them they're going to have their estimate within 2 days. We email it off to them within those 2 days. And then within the next 2 days later, we're contacting them, making sure that they got the estimate, and then we leave it with them.
Okay. Is that a follow-up phone call normally or another email? Or?
Typically, it's a phone call because if we get the email wrong on the first one, then we're just getting the email wrong on the second one. So we try to make it a phone call and just leave a message. I don't think, for my company, I don't think it's necessary to do more than that.
Yeah.
I think after that first, did you get the estimate? Do you have any questions? After that, it's nagging.
Right. Yeah, okay.
In my opinion. There's other companies that do it and they do it successfully, but I don't.
Okay. Do you communicate? Do you collect these customers or potential customers in some sort of database, and do you communicate with them in one way or another?
Yeah, we usually do mail out maybe once a year, just saying, hey, and we usually do it at an unusual time, like Happy Easter or Happy Thanksgiving. We just want to say thanks for your business for the year, that kind of thing. People get inundated at Christmas.
Right.
And it's just, I think, it's just a waste. People are too busy. They resent it. I would resent it. And so I assume my customer would resent it too. Yeah,
okay. But so do you communicate with people that are not your customers? So do you guys, where do your leads, where do new leads come from? Or, what's something that you guys do in order to generate new people coming into the business, new potential customers?
Well, we probably are at about 60% referral.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, which is nice. And we give wine out to our customers.
Oh.
I have a customer who owns a U-Brew type wine place.
Yep.
And I don't drink wine, I drink tequila. And so I could never support her business. And but only good tequila. Jose's not really tequila. I'm just putting that out there. I buy it from her and her husband, and because she's given us so many referrals over the year, and I thought, well, how can I help her and her business?
Yeah.
And I think that's another key thing that we forget. Like, how do we help promote other people's businesses without any expectation of anything in return? If she never gives my name out again, I'm totally fine with it. But we buy the wine, we bottle it, and we give it to the people to say thank you for letting us do business with you, and thanks for referring us.
Yeah.
And people appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And there's other ways of doing it. You can do mugs, you can do pens, or whatever. I don't know, whatever makes you happy. In the area that I live in, wine is successful. I've talked to other people and there's no way wine would fly.
Yeah, right.
So, but we seem to love our wine here.
And here.
Yes, I suppose so, right?
I've just come off the back of a week of drinking wine and I think I might have a bit of a detox.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, tequila.
What's the best bit of advice you've ever been given? Fix
your mistakes first. Yeah. If you have a deficiency, that moves to the top of your list. That is the very next place you go.
Okay.
Because 1, it shows your customer that you care. And 2, it gets it off your plate. And 3, the longer they're looking at that mistake, is the longer they have to look for more mistakes. And the longer they have to tell everybody that there's a mistake.
Yeah.
But if you get there right away, you fix the stuff, they're like, whoa, that's amazing.
We're getting towards the end of this discussion now, Alison. However, I did want to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, it's called Think Opposite, Using the Domino Effect to Change Your Business, Change the World.
Okay.
It's going to be in bookstores here in September. So that's pretty exciting. It's a little unusual for a book like mine.
Okay.
And it's kind of tough to get into bookstores. But what it is it's just, how do you permeate your business with who you are? Because your business is an extension of who you are.
Yep.
So how do you become aware of that? How do you align your values with your business to then translate that to your customer so that they understand who you are as a business? You're more likely to attract the clients that will jive better with who you are when they know who you are.
Yep.
And then how do you hire staff or convert the staff that you already have into being better staff for you, like really understanding that relationship. And then how do you give to your community? Because that's super important. And it's super important about how you capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And that it is aligned with who you are as a business. It needs to make sense. And otherwise people are just confused.
Do you find, Alison, as companies get larger, they often lose grasp of that to a degree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
The size takes over the culture.
Yeah.
And the culture has to take over the size.
And is that, in your experience, something that can be what's the word I'm looking for? I suppose regulated, or is it a system problem, or is it a training process problem, or why does that happen?
I think it's really specific. Why does it happen that we can create a culture, or why does it happen that business takes over?
Why does it happen that the culture can be lost as the business grows and develops?
I think the wrong people get put into management.
Yeah, okay, yep.
I think we have to be really careful that the people who we have leading our teams subscribe to our mission,
yep,
and that their personality and needs and family life are taken into consideration as well. Otherwise, they just start resenting, and then their work reflects that.
Yep.
So if we're not treating our staff like whole people, we'll never have a good culture.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good advice. Okay, well, look, I suppose in closing, what does the future hold for Alison Donaghey?
Well, my son and I are working with this great company called Breakthrough Academy, and they are systemizing trades and how trades do business. Mm-hmm. And it'll be really interesting because it'll help my son insert his personality and perspective into things,
yep,
and allow us to become more systemized so that we can eventually branch out, have different divisions,
yep,
and different, maybe even franchise, I think is probably great. Where we're going with that. Yeah.
And thanks to you, I've actually been introduced to Danny, and he's going to be coming on the show next week, I think. We're going to be try to do a bit more stuff together. They're a fantastic organization. So thank you very much for that introduction.
Oh, you're most welcome. And that goes back to that other thing too that I'd said earlier. We need to really help support other businesses that we care for. Like I buy my wine from my customer. I'm really enjoying what Danny's doing. So why wouldn't I just promote without any other expectation?
Right. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Normally the last question I ask, I guess, on the show is who they'd like to see on the show. However, you already answered that question before I asked it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I'd love to hear more about Danny, and because you'll probably ask him things that I haven't thought about asking, and then I'll be able to go, and then I can delve further with them into the things that you bring up. So thanks in advance for bringing up really amazing stuff with them.
No dramas. And
no pressure, but do it.
And I've got here a couple of, I'm just going to run through some places where people can get hold of you. I'll post these in the show notes for any of the listeners out there that want to get hold of Alison or any of the companies. There's dominothinking.com, and there is, if you want to email Alison, you can do so at info@dominothinking.com. Instagram is @dominothinking, Facebook is dominothinking, and Twitter is @Alison Donaghey. Donaghey, which is Donaghey, and Alison is with one L.
Yes, I know. Nothing's easy, is it?
Did I get that right?
You totally got it right. Yes, and thanks for that. And really, I'm totally welcome people just having some random questions. Often, it just takes one person not involved in your organization to see something a little bit different that will send you on a trajectory that just really takes you where you want to go. So I'm totally open to hearing from people.
Fantastic. Well, there you go, listeners. If you'd like to reach out to Alison and ask her anything in particular, she's certainly been there, walk the walk, talk the talk, and she's happy to help. So I would take her up on that if I was you. But I think for now, I'm going to call that a wrap for this episode. And for the listeners out there, stay tuned for upcoming episodes. And if you have any questions, please, you can either contact us, leave some comments in the show notes in the comment section there. Or, of course, if you see this on any of the social media channels, you can leave a comment right there and then. Otherwise, if you want to get hold of Alison directly, there will be all those links to her personal contact details within the show notes on the webpage for this podcast. So, Alison, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was good talking with you.
And listeners, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.